let's focus on the high level first. When I say high level, it's where do you want to go, why you're doing it, what are the tools. So mainly high stuff that are not like into the weed. So for me, it's more the chief of orchestrator. So what I say example, when I'm an engineer by education. I have like a few other degrees as well. And so I was a subject matter expert. To scale a company, to scale your business, you need to build systems. And to build systems, you need to understand many components of your business. So it's kind of I would say a nice loop that you need to double check all the time to make sure that you are progressing very well toward the success of the project. Hopefully you are in full energy today for this podcast, because that one is something that I'm living every day. I like it. Generalists versus specialists. So that's a hot topic, because many people are believing, oh, you need to be like one thing. If you're good at one thing, people will pay you zillions of dollars because you know that thing. But in entrepreneurship, is it really the case? Is it really what you need when you are in the entrepreneurship world? So what your take? I'm starting very quickly, very boldly. What's your take, my friend, on generalists versus specialists in the entrepreneurship world?
I believe in entrepreneurship world, you have to be a generalist. You have to know everything about everything, especially in the beginning of your company. So when you start your company, you have to be able to understand the business model, the financial part, the marketing part, the sales part, the technical part, because the worst case scenario would be you start a technical company and you have zero understanding of technicality, and you're just trying to make something work, and you hire an outsourcing company and it's not going well. So if you understand technicality, at least the minimum, at least how two applications communicate with each other, at least how a simple app operates, user interface, user experience, design, something that you can bring to the conversation that will enable you to navigate these very difficult conversations with technical individual. And I'm just giving the example with technology here. But also it's important with finance. I love reading about finance books. And I have a degree in finance as well. So it's part of my education. So it's always a good idea to understand the business spectrum: accounting, finance, marketing, logistics, supply chains, all these aspects. You have to learn about them, at least the basics, so you can navigate and you can communicate with different experts and stakeholders in these different endeavors. But Steve, allow me to turn the question on your side, if you will. So in your particular career, in your particular experience, what did you notice is happening over the years? Are we getting more generalists, or are we getting more experts as things are evolving, as technologies are moving?
I think that we are violently in agreement on this one. We need
Oh,
to
we
be
are.
generalists to be successful as entrepreneurs. But at the same time, to play the devil's advocate, we can also be a hybrid version. And what I mean by this is, you can be a specialist in one thing, you can be a subject matter expert in one thing, and also develop the other expertise or knowledge. So I think the question to us, to everybody, so is the CEO a subject matter expert or a company orchestrator? So for me, it's more the chief of orchestrator. So what I say example, when I'm an engineer by education. I have like a few other degrees as well. And so I was a subject matter expert in technology. I'm still is on many fronts now. But this is not how I can build my companies. I need to know more stuff. I need to know finance, accounting, how to raise money, how to talk to investors, how to talk to customers. So all these things, all these skills, we need to develop them as entrepreneurs. And I'm sure people listening and watching this, they are totally relate to these aspects of things. So we need to be generalists. But to what level of depth we need to be, that's a different ballgame. And just recently, like a quick story, I was talking to a global enterprise who helps me develop a platform for my online course. And after a week of work, I realized that they had spent a lot of time on different things. And fortunately, they documented all their work. And I realized by myself, with my experience learning about project management, knowing technology, knowing how
Mm-hmm.
much time it takes, what is the level of effort, and all these things to realize that, seriously, 80% of the work on the list didn't justify the time spent on it. So I argued, I won, now it's fixed. But this is something that perhaps somebody who doesn't know tech enough, doesn't know project management enough, would say, oh, okay, that must be complicated. So yes, this is normal. I should pay for that. And I've seen that so many times. So just being an expert or just being knowledgeable about something, you are going to be able to negotiate. And as entrepreneurs, we need to be frugal and you need to save money to spend the money in the right place. And also, what I do as well in those cases, I manage the projects myself most of the time because I don't want them to be out of sync, out of whack, and they can be costly. And at the end, my money doesn't go at the right place. So,
Mm-hmm.
and if I don't know something, I say, okay, now I have 3 months to become an expert in this, or I have 2 months to become an expert. And once it's done, I know I can challenge many people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if you want to hire the right people, you need to understand your stuff because you don't want to hire somebody who's going to screw you over time. Sorry for the word.
No worries.
And the same thing. And the next time after 2 months, okay, now, okay, I need to be an expert in this. I need to be an expert in this. Contract negotiation, contract writings, all these things we need to go. If we use all the services around us, I mean, all the supporting services to build a company can be very expensive. If you have like VC, if you're a VC backed company, you have zillions of money in the bank account. Yes, hire the people, go outside, focus on your stuff. But if you're an SMB or SME, different depending on the size you have to know your stuff. But again, going back to what I said, hybrid, you can be like a subject matter expert in AI and ML, but you still have to learn the rest to be overall a generalist with a strong expertise in one or two topics of your business. So I went along on that one because I'm passionate about it and I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
learn, and keep learning forever. And I think this is what I suggest to do for our entrepreneurs watching and listening to this podcast. What about your
That's amazing.
experience? You're a bit
Wow.
younger, so what is your experience?
Yeah, Steve, I think what you shared with me goes hand in hand with my experience as well. I found out that a lot of time, uh, when you showcase or when you have a proven track record, especially in technology, you get a lot of respect in the marketplace from other individuals that you are working with. And respect is earned, but also sometimes it's always a good idea to let the other person that you are working with that, hey, by the way, I know this technology. It's not a question of I don't want to do it, I just don't have the time. So I am just outsourcing because I'm doing other stuff. And I would love to collaborate with you in the future and do this together. If they know that you know the technology itself, there is a level of perhaps clarity. People will understand, you know what, this is something that the individual can do, and they understand how much time is allocated, and everything is really done in a very transparent way. I'm not saying that if you're not technical, you're going to be taken advantage of. Obviously, we have companies that are very ethical, they work in a way that makes sense and they do the work. But understanding how technology works, understanding how technology operates, how technology communicates, provides you with an added value that is extremely important, and that's something that goes with it. So, Steve, let me ask you. So, do you have a story in this particular scenario?
Sure, Mo. I mean, the story is a while ago, one of my businesses, the one that I learned the most, more than any diploma that I got. And since then, I'm a different man and different entrepreneur. So the thing is, it was a digital radiography camera that replaced the film in for veterinarians and chiropractors. So it was the long story short is I'm an electrical engineer and I had to deal with optical stuff and
Hmm.
mechano-optical things. So basically, like an optical system, it was a bunch of lenses, but it was everything in design. So I was not understanding anything about that except with a few, I would say, principles that we learn in engineering. So what I did, I said, okay, I need to become an expert. I need to be knowledgeable. So I hired somebody at a very low cost who was a freelancer, expert in optics, And we were working with a big company based in California. So I hired this guy to challenge the design from another freelancer that somebody else hired before me. I said, okay, what about this design? Because for me, I wasn't able to say this design, this optical design. I don't know it. So the guy
Yeah.
said, yeah, I'm not sure about this design. But the other one in California, they wanted to build it. You just want to build it. But you build something, you base a company, you raise like millions of money to build it. And at the end, maybe it won't work. So I need to be reassured that it's going to work. So by using to outsource to a guy who has no commitment, nothing, just to be paid, he challenged the design, which I used that to challenge the company to redo and revisit a few things. And eventually I put the two together with me and just listening, watching, and challenging. And those two guys come into an agreement that we had to change the design entirely and rebuild something new. So the
Wow.
power of using outsourcing when it matters, but also the knowledge transfer from these two guys or entities to me for the future was amazing. So basically, in a very short period of time, I was able to not become an expert, but knowledgeable to manage them, challenge them. And also I learned about what tools was used, the tools were used and how to play with them a bit, how to read the reports, how to know about optical stuff eventually. So again, I'm not an optical expert. And, but after that, when we worked out the optomechanical pieces to be that precise with tolerances and all these things, that was amazing. So what I learned. So I think that just at that moment, being a generalist, being able to understand these things based on my background and my own personal interest, I was able to grasp the basic knowledge and a bit more to be able to challenge experts. So my point into this with this story is you can become knowledgeable enough in one and many things to challenge the other guys to get the maximum of their work. And this way you're going to get the best. And it needs to be done within like I would say a tone of collaboration, obviously, not challenging like too strongly, in my opinion. So this way you challenge them, but you don't want to be upset about what you do. And as a learner, you can ask the question, "Hey, I think I learned a new thing. Can you explain me this?" So there are ways of doing it, and so very great story. And I'm still applying it and using the same tactic with my experts or the experts I'm dealing with.
Wow.
So that was
Amazing,
my
Steve.
story.
Actually, when you were talking, Steve, something came to my mind. It's related to this general versus specialist, but it's also, I think, would be really useful to our listeners and people that are currently consuming the content. I noticed, Steve, during our interactions and us working together, that one of the things that makes you a great entrepreneur is your communication style. Everything is simple, clarified, to the point. What are some of the tips that you could share with our listeners and audience members that they can follow in order to improve their communication style so they can at least be able to communicate in a way that will enable them to make more money in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know where to start, and I think it's kind of a way that's I like to use the top down and the bottom up approaches at the same time. Not necessarily at the same time or the same project. So, example, if somebody is talking about something high level about priorities and all these things, so don't deep dive in the details of the things before figuring out what's at the top. So, what's related to communications? Okay, say, okay, now I think, example, somebody brings up something at a high level, but at the deeper level, because you say, okay, I think that person is mixed up. Let's say, let's focus on the high level first. When I say high level, it's where do you want to go? Why you're doing it? What are the tools? So mainly high stuff that are not like into the weed of doing things and programming or writing something. Let's figure it out first. Make sure we're clear on this. What are the objectives? Who's working on what? How you're planning to do that? Make sure it's all clear at this point. And from there, after that, you can go deeper. And when you go deeper, same thing. You don't go left and right. You need to make sure that you know what are the first priority. But by knowing the objectives, you know, and who is the expert on what, and what should be done first to be understood. So all these things are, in my mind, going well together, but you need to go top down first. And when I say you need to do both approaches, once you have started this, at one point you are working in the weeds, you are doing the hands-on work, or they are doing it, or you are collaborating with them to do that. So you need to refer. Bottom up is, okay, you're doing that. Why? Oh, because of this objective, because of that thing, because of what we want to achieve in the next sprint, in the next 2 weeks, or for this milestone. So this is why top down, to make sure you're fully aligned, and bottom up to make sure you're still aligned. So it's kind of the, I would say, a nice loop that you need to double check all the time to make sure that you are progressing very well toward the success of the projects. That would be like my high level view of the top down and bottom up approach.
That's interesting. That's interesting, Steve. I think that's an amazing approach, especially because it's quite pragmatic. If you think about it, and I was attentive and listening to you and trying to learn as much as possible, I see it's very logical. So it's very pragmatic, step-by-step approach. Maybe an additional tip that I would love to share with our audience is anytime that you are trying to communicate about a concept or you're trying to explain a concept to an individual, if you cannot explain that concept to an individual who never or who doesn't know anything about that concept, you did not understand the concept in the first place. So if, let's say, for example, we're speaking about time value of money, which is a finance concept, or reinforcement learning, which is an AI concept, and you cannot explain it to an individual that is not even in tech, or an individual that is not even in finance. You're just going out in the street and you meet somebody. Hey, how are you? I would like to introduce myself. I'm going to explain to you reinforcement learning today. If you cannot do that, if you are not able to explain a concept into the simplest format possible, trust me, you did not understand it. So that's perhaps a strategy that I would love to share with our audience, is that anytime that you want to double check that you know something, is if you can explain it to anybody. If you are struggling to explain it, I'm sorry to tell you, you don't know what you're talking about. So it's always a good idea to remove the jargon, remove the complexity, because so many times I believe, and I noticed this as a technical trainer, sometimes when we want to sound fancy, we start using fancy words, very fancy. For example, I can say this. So Java class is an implementation of a programming paradigms that uses different. You see what I'm talking about? So I'm trying to use words to sound fancy, but if we remove all the ambiguity, a Java class is a representation of a real world object. So it's we're just removing all the complexity. So anytime that you want to learn something, try to simplify and obviously change the level depending on the audience. So if you are sitting with technical leaders, all right, let's try to adjust the level. If we are sitting with business individuals, try to speak to them about technology and business. Marketing individuals, marketing and technology. And so anytime, whatever field that you are currently working on, fit it to the audience. Do the research. I never, Steve, in my entire career, I never meet with an individual without doing a research about who they are. Where did they study? What do they know? What are they doing? Anything that I can find about the individual is a plus. Why? Because I care about their time and I want to represent myself and represent the conversation into the best possible way. I want to make sure that we connect, that we have similar interests, that we have similar ideas. And if we don't, I would love to know about your interests and we can discuss them together. So I feel that meeting an individual, especially in an online environment or even offline environment, being prepared and able to communicate with the individual from their own perspective is very important. So many times, Steve, I meet with an individual where they are working in, let's say, a field that is far from what I'm doing. For example, I love supply chain, but I'm not an expert in supply chain. So I will spend 3 days learning about supply chain. So what are some of the concepts of supply chain? What are some of the tools that are used in supply chain? How can supply chain help companies optimize their operations? So I will learn, read books, listen to podcasts, Steve, watch videos, watch TED Talks, any content and material that I can learn. So when I'm there, there is an understanding. We understand each other. And if something doesn't make sense, I always try to be, hey, by the way, Steve, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't understand this point. Can you please elaborate? It's always a good idea to be very frank with the person that you are communicating with and be open. It's all right. If you don't understand something, hey, it's okay. Well, what's the problem? So I really, really love the art of communication and the art of quick learning. So if there is a concept that you don't understand, thanks to AI nowadays and thanks to the generative AI power that you have in the marketplace, you can pick up any new technology depending on your different level. And there is a prompt. I know that we spoke about prompt engineering in the past. See, I want to share this prompt with our perhaps audience members. So if you have a lot of content or a lot of interactions with the specific generative AI tool, so for example, ChatGPT, always ask ChatGPT the following prompt. Based on what you know about me, explain concept XYZ. So let's say a concept, a variable, let's say reinforcement learning, based on what you know about me. So the generative AI tool knows based on your interaction, oh, Steve is a business leader. Steve is an engineer. Steve is somebody in this particular field because these generative AI tools, they will have a profile about you. They will know what you know. They will know what you don't know. So the tool itself will explain the concept to you based on your profile, and you will get an explanation that's going to shock you how accurate it goes to your mind and your understanding and in your brain. If you are using the tool the first time, you should definitely provide some input. I am an engineer with a degree in management information system. I am trying to learn about large language models. Could you please explain what are the main concepts of large language model? And you go from there. So it's always a good idea to know that being a specialist nowadays is not helpful, especially as an entrepreneur, because we have tools that provide you with the knowledge. It's like having a access to the world technologies and the world knowledge uh, quickly and easily. AI, I think, is an extension of the human brain. And if there is something that can extend the human brain, what's important? Knowing as much knowledge about everything as possible so you can stay competitive in the marketplace. So allow me to ask you a question, Steve, and this is going to be very interesting. So before generative AI, what did you notice? What is the biggest difference in your business before and after generative AI?
You know, to scale a company, to scale your business, you need to build systems. And to build systems, you need to understand many components of your business. And now, nowadays, with AI, we can really, really go faster in understanding the business and also simplify a few things. I mean, I don't want to go into the business process management design, but you can craft something on a napkin with a pen and say how my business is doing in terms of quote to cash or customers going to the website, how they do end up. So all these things can be crafted by you, and you can ask AI to help you out with this. And along those, I would say, operational tasks and actions, you can craft emails, you can decide of website copy, and all these things can be generated by generative AI to simplify. So basically, my saying is you are one process away from improving your business. And
Mm,
once you've done one process, you do another one, you do another one. So this way you go step by step. I like to have the phased approach. And again, by using AI, you can really, really do that. Obviously, as we very well know, you need to have nice prompts. You need to know your stuff. So you need to be knowledgeable you need to be knowledgeable enough on your thing to be able to prompt your AI tool in a good way to develop it and keep going and going. But you can converge a lot faster now with these tools. So I
mm,
mean, I'm doing that for customers, and that's great. And as you said, to learn about these things, going back to the generalist approach, you can learn with so many ways. You have online courses, you have like platforms that you're giving your courses, platforms that I'm building as well for entrepreneurs in the future. YouTube for free, which is the biggest free university in the world. That's amazing. So all these things can be, I would say, it's reachable. We can always learn, and I'm doing that as well. And you can learn with the tools as well. You can have discussions with AI tools like I do with ChatGPT about different topics. So that's great. So I think right now it's kind of that doesn't make sense to keep learning. And if you learn a lot, you can become a generalist. And I would say that a generalist is like being a pseudo specialist in many things.
mm.
That's the hybrid version. So that would be my last words regarding generalist versus specialist, but for today. What about your last words, Mo?
I would say keep that curiosity fire alive. I believe, I remember whenever you're interacting with, I have like cousins who are super young, very early in their life, 10 years old, 12 years old, family members who I respect, who I love, and they're always very curious. They ask about how does this work? How does this work? So they always ask about the environment. How does the phone works? How does the TV works? How does the door works? They're very curious. And I noticed so many times my perhaps older individuals that I know, they start losing that curiosity. The more time they spend in the planet Earth, the lowest perhaps openness that they are to learning. So I believe in order to stay competitive in the marketplace today that is quite frankly changing super fast, stay curious. Learn about everything. How does this work? How does it work? How can I do this? What makes these two apps connect? What makes this technology work? So always stay curious and ask the why question, why question, why question. Because so many times we take things for granted, Steve. So it's always a good idea to ask why, and that's something that I do a lot of with my clients. When I see a process, I ask, all right, thank you so much for the time. Why are you following this process? And they're just like, because it is the way it is. And I'm like, we have to talk about this. So it's always a good idea to ask why and challenge the current processes that are currently in the world. Because if you think about it, Steve, that's how amazing companies are built. Something was not there, and somebody asked why, and there we have it. Wow. Wow, man.
Yeah.
So it's
The,
Steve. Yeah, go for it, Steve.
the famous and the powerful whys. So I didn't want to cut you out. Mo, do you
No
have something
worries.
to add before we're leaving?
Absolutely not. I'm good.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I think it's a good end with the why. So thank you very much again for your time, and see you soon on a different episode with a different topic that is going to be very interesting, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Have fun.
Hey, bye, Mo.
Bye, Steve.